another tactical fly fisher fly tying tutorial. In this tutorial I'm going to be tying for you the Magneto Czech nymph, and this has been one of my best nymphs for steelhead ever since the first time I fished it long ago on one of the first steelhead trips I ever took. My friend Scott Barrett, whom I was with, was fishing some egg patterns, and for some stupid reason going on a steelhead trip I didn't have any egg patterns in my box. So I looked for the closest thing that I had, which happened to be a pink scud that I'd been fishing a lot on some of the local tailwaters where I was at and having a lot of success on trout. Well, it just so happens that it was great for steelhead as well. So it's become a staple and is almost always on my line if I'm out nymphing for steelhead. I've got a partridge Czech nymph hook here with a 3.3 millimeter tactical fly fisher slotted tungsten bead. It happens to be silver. This is the original color. You could obviously chuck a pink bead on there and I'm sure it'd be just fine. I've got some 20 thousandths lead wire here. I'm going to cover about 2/3 of the shank with it for a little extra weight. A lot of times when I'm fishing for steelhead, I'm fishing a lot of deep pools or heavy runs, and my flies end up being quite a bit heavier than they would be if I was fishing for trout, especially because I'm also fishing heavier tippet that doesn't sink as well. Alright, I've got some 8/0 red thread, and I'm going to go ahead and just form a nice thread layer over the top of that lead wire. You can also put some super glue under it if you want. I had a little bit extra that broke off of the wire there, so I'm going to try and get that out of there. There we go. Alright, next step is I need some silver brassy sized ultra wire. I'm going to break off the end of that lead wire there so you don't have to use your scissors. But yeah, I've got some silver brassy UTC wire here. Go ahead and tie that in at the back. And I put that on the far side of the hook so that when I make my first wrap, the wire goes underneath so that I'm wrapping clockwise if I'm looking at the front of the hook the whole time. Then now I have some salmon pink Hen's pearl shellback. This is a great shellback material for any Czech nymph or scud that you might want a flashback type shellback on without having to do like a two-step flashback with some flashback under a scud back or something. This takes care of it all in one material. This dubbing that I've got here is a mix. It's about 1/3 UV2 CLX neon pink from Spirit River, and then 2/3 scud shrimp pink, UV2 scud dubbing shrimp pink. So that the CLX is really powerful, bright stuff, so you want it to be the minority in the mix. You could certainly chuck this in a coffee grinder, but since my 3-year-old happens to be asleep right now and I don't want to wake him up, I just mix this by hand, which makes it so it probably didn't mix quite as well. But this is a longer fibered dubbing, so you may want to have a little glass of water to help get some moisture to dub it with, or you can just spit on your fingers and get it that way. You can also always turn to some dubbing wax, but I tend to avoid that if possible. Alright, so I've dubbed a pretty long noodle of dubbing here. I would say probably about 4 inches worth, and it's fairly thick because I want to be able to brush these fibers out. I lay quite a bit of dubbing on the shank because after you've brushed it, it gets thinner. So that's pretty much it for the dubbing. Just cover your shank with a fair amount, pull your shell back over, and I trimmed that shell back a little bit narrower than how it comes. It comes fairly wide, and it doesn't stretch very well. You don't want to pull on this material like you would a typical scudback, because it will stretch out and it doesn't have memory. It doesn't bounce back to shape. So I trimmed it narrower so that I wouldn't need to pull on it very much. Then I take that brassy silver wire and I made a half turn underneath. I'm going to make my first turn actually behind the fly on the bare hook, and that makes it so that the first turn into the materials bites down really well and doesn't want to slide off. A lot of times that can happen when you're wrapping over tinsel. So I've made 5 turns here. You want them fairly close together, but not super close together, because you do want to be able to get access to that dubbing with the dubbing brush. And now I'm just going to add a tiny little bit more dubbing on the front. You could add ice dubbing or something else here as well to give it a little bit of contrast or flash. But really I'm just trying to cover up those thread wraps that I've placed down, tying the shell back. Then I'm going to take and put some super glue on my thread. You could just use hardest hole or your favorite head cement as well. I'll put a few turns in before whip finishing, and then a quick 3-turn whip finish, and that super glue makes it so I don't have to double up my whip finishes and build a bigger thread head than I really want, since I already used dubbing to kind of cover that up. Now the super glue is probably going to take care of it, but I always leave my thread on the fly and I don't cut it off until I'm done brushing it, because I've had it happen a few times where I'm brushing out my dubbing here to make, you know, a buggy legginess to the fly. If you've already cut off your thread, sometimes it can pull it out of that wet finish and undo the knot on your fly, and you don't want that, obviously. So I leave the thread up there until I'm done brushing, and then I go ahead and trim it off. Now I'm just grabbing the fibers from below the fly, and I'll take them and stroke them and cut them, and you want them about even with the hook gap. And obviously it doesn't matter to the fish, but if you have a few errant fibers hanging around, then you can always trim them off. But that's it, the Magneto Czech nymph. Go tie a few, put it on your favorite nymphing leader, whether it's Euro nymphing or indicator nymphing, and I'm sure you're going to get some steelhead interested in your rig. If you like what you saw here, please find me on Instagram and Facebook at Tactical Fly Fisher, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and feel free to like and share all these videos. Thanks for watching.